Professor Abeyurani, our chief guest tonight, guest of honor, Professor John Nguyen, President and members of the Council of the Sri Lanka Association of Urological Surgeons, Dr. Satish Gunasinghe, President of College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, invited guests including family members and friends of late Dr. S.S. Goonewardena, my dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, let me thank Dr. Surendi Silva, the President, Dr. Kalana Paranapalliyaguruge, Secretary, and the members of the Council of the Sri Lanka Association of Urological Surgeons for giving me this opportunity of paying tribute to one of Sri Lanka's greatest urological surgeons, Dr. S.S. Goonewardena, whose life and work we commemorate in this lecture today. On the 18th of May, 1958, a baby boy was born in the southern port city of Galle. His parents were C.T. Goonewardena, who retired as the Surveyor General of the country, and Jnana Goonewardena. A few years earlier, the newborn baby's elder brother had got a polio-like paralytic illness after vaccination. In those days, the only potential treatment available for such an obscure and serious illness was in Moscow, Russia. So the parents took the elder brother to Russia, and the Russians were very helpful to them. In appreciation, the mother gave a Russian name to the newborn baby, Sirosha. In 1956, Mr. S.W.R.D. Bandaranayake became the Prime Minister of Ceylon and made a sensational change in the country's political landscape. His son, Anuruddha, was the crown prince that every mother dreamt of. Not surprisingly, Mrs. Goonewardena wanted to name her son Anuruddha as well. The astrologer, after reading the horoscope of the newborn baby, suggested having 3 names rather than 2. The parents decided to give the name of the obstetrician who delivered the baby, Sahadeva. Finally, the baby born to Goonewardenas was named Sirosha Anuruddha Sahadeva Goonewardena. Later in life, he was SAS to many of his admirers, friends, colleagues, and students. In 1996, after I got through my MS Part 2 examination, I selected general surgery as the specialty. After the selection meeting, which was held at the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, when I was walking towards the 520 quarters of the General Hospital, Colombo, now known as National Hospital of Sri Lanka, I met Dr. S.S. Goonewardena, who taught us urology when we were preparing for the exam a few months earlier. At that time, there was no formal urology appointment in the postgraduate surgical training program for registrars. He started a casual chat in the corridor near the merchant's ward and spoke for over 1 hour and convinced me to change my specialty to urology. A few weeks later, I became his first postgraduate trainee in urology. With great respect and admiration to an exceptional teacher and a trainer, I will refer him as SASG hereafter in my presentation for convenience. SASG was the 6th in a family of 8. He had his primary and secondary education at Royal College, Colombo. He was one of the few school children who got a double promotion for his above average performance while in school. So he was 1 year younger than his colleagues of the same batch even in the medical school. He was an enthusiastic reader and was well ahead of his peers. In 1975, at the tender age of 16 years, when he heard about Watson and Crick describing the composition and structure of DNA, he wrote a letter to them congratulating them as well as explaining what he understood about DNA. There were no emails or social media to send letters, but only the snail mail was available. Mr. Watson wrote back thanking him and wishing him good luck. He was an enthusiastic table tennis player at Royal College. As we found out later, he was a talented singer of classical English music. He displayed his musical talent every year after a round of scotch at the inauguration ceremony of the annual academic sessions of Sri Lanka Association of Urological Surgeons. His favorite singer was Clarence Vijayawardena. He loved his songs so much, he named his elder daughter, Dilhani, after the song Dilhani Duani Nada Nidyanne. SSG entered the University of Peradeniya in 1977 and was a resident of the Mass Hall of the university. He was a silent student in his batch. He surprised everyone when he clinched a first class at the second MBA examination, as he never showed off his knowledge. He won the Chalmers Gold Medal and C.B. Dharmasena Gold Medal for Anatomy and was awarded a Commonwealth Scholarship during his third year when he visited the pioneering urologist, the late Mr. George Smith in Oxford, United Kingdom. His visit to Oxford inspired him to embark on a career in urology. He passed out with second-class honors at the final MBBS in 1982. Although the surgical and urological fraternity remember SSG's academic prowess while in medical school, his batchmates at Peradeniya remember him for his humane qualities. During university holidays after the year-end examination, when everyone rushed home, SSG stayed back in the hostel to teach and help his batchmates who got referred at the examination. Following his completion of the Master of Surgery training program, he embarked on a career in urological surgery under the tutelage of Dr. Lakshman Artigala, Senior Consultant Urological Surgeon at the General Hospital, Colombo. In the United Kingdom, he trained with Mr. N.W. Harrison in Brighton, UK, and achieved the Fellowship of the Royal College of Surgeons of England. During his stay in UK, he obtained the Diploma in Urology from the Institute of Urology, London. He was the first urological surgeon in Sri Lanka to be board certified as a specialist by the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo in August 1991. Upon his arrival in Sri Lanka, he was appointed as the consultant urological surgeon at Karapitiya Teaching Hospital, Galle, for a short stint of 2 years. In 1993, he was appointed to the Colombo General Hospital as a consultant urological surgeon and was in charge of the urology unit occupied by his predecessors, Dr. G.N. Pereira and Dr. Lakshman Artigala. After serving for 25 years in the unit, he retired from this post in 2018 as the most senior urological surgeon in the Ministry of Health. As his senior registrar, I remember SASG coming to the ward at 7:20 a.m. every day for the ward rounds. Though it was challenging for us, the morning ward round was a blessing for the ward staff, as all decisions regarding patients would be taken by 8:30 a.m. and the staff could devote their time and energy for patient care thereafter. Doing investigations and referring patients was possible on the same day without undue delay. At the end of a grueling full-day operating list, SSG would always do a quick business round in the ward to see the operated patients without fail. This ensured unnecessary late visits to the ward to manage missed out post-operative problems. His interest in research and record keeping was phenomenal. He understood the value of good research and writing when research was not a priority at all in Sri Lanka's undergraduate or postgraduate curricula or teaching. He documented data of all cancer patients and other special interest conditions he treated and updated those records continuously. Using this data, he produced many research papers, and those records can be considered a gold mine for further studies. Dr. Umesh Jayaraja, one of his students and a master researcher himself, compiled and co-authored a large number of articles using the data that were recorded and preserved by SASG. It is an exhaustive list of publications, unusual for any health department clinician from Sri Lanka. I sincerely hope the younger urological surgeons and trainees in urology in the audience will read these articles and learn from a maestro. Due to his up-to-date knowledge, many sought expert opinions from him regarding complex clinical problems encountered by them. Even his consultation notes of his private patients were comprehensive and orderly, containing a detailed history, all relevant components of physical examination, and a summary of dated investigations. He inculcated his good qualities to his trainees and junior doctors of his unit through example. And whenever they published an article, SASG was among the first few to read the article and send comments. He was never afraid to criticize even his best friends or students, but was very generous whenever he saw good research and writing. When we published a paper on retrograde ureteric stenting for pelvic malignancies, he wrote a critical review castigating our study. Few months later, when we published a paper on the management of ureteric calculi, he sent an email congratulating us for publishing a practice-changing paper. Both objective criticism and limitless encouragement were done in good faith in order to enhance the quality of scientific research. Some of those emails he sent even helped us to learn new English vocabulary and style, because his repertoire of English words was extraordinary. I learned the words proclivity and indubitable after reading one such mail. I will just read few lines of his email for the benefit of young urologists in the audience. I quote, "Thank you very much indeed for enriching my weekend reading. Congratulations on this excellent discourse on prostate cancer in Sri Lanka, the outcome of a tedious prospective study. I hope this is not the culmination, but the beginning of very high standard scientific writing from you, having observed your proclivity for translating inexpensive clinical research into journal articles without sugarcoating the truth. This comprehensive account of prostate cancer in Sri Lanka from a profoundly wise urological surgeon is the indubitable truth on his cancer in the year 2014. Unquote. He read not only material related to urology, but even other scientific articles. He was courageous enough to critically analyze such publications too, in order to enhance the quality of scientific literature. Even after his retirement, he continued to publish and send me useful articles whenever he came across such. A few months before his untimely death, he sent me a mail saying, I quote, "Young senior registrars should be given an opportunity to contribute to academic urology and hone their writing skills before they are blunted in this sphere due to lack of opportunity. As a retired man, I can always avail oneself to help these young trainees during their formative days." Unquote. He had a special penchant for history of surgery and urology in Sri Lanka. He wanted to prepare a bibliography of publications related to urological surgery in Sri Lanka. Because of the many emails he sent regarding this and his relentless persuasion, I started the project with the help from Professor Channa Ratnatunga and SASG himself. After laborious efforts over several months, we managed to finalize the script, which was approved by SASG. The printers delivered the printed copies only on the 13th of March, 2 days after SASG's death. Most likely that was his last academic project, and I am sad that I could not show the printed copy to him. All I could do was to give copies of the publication to his wife Sandhya, sister Nevanka, brother Maitri, and 2 daughters Dilhani and Nadishani after the funeral was over. During the 1990-91 period, when SASG associated senior urologists at Institute of Urology London, he realized the importance of establishing an association for urologists back in Sri Lanka. After his return to Sri Lanka, he started the Cubs Club as an academic event for urologists and trainees. As a senior registrar in urology, I made the first presentation on renal carcinoma at the inaugural meeting of the Cubs Club. Taking the cue from this, SASG started writing a constitution for his dream project, Sri Lanka Association of Urological Surgeons, with the help of his erstwhile colleagues, Professor Neville Pereira and Dr. Anuruddha. The 3 of them constituted the steering committee which laid the foundation for the establishment of the Sri Lanka Association of Urological Surgeons, which we enjoy today as an internationally recognized academic institute of repute. The birth of SLAUS was on 18th December 1999, and the inaugural meeting was held at Galadari Hotel. SASG functioned as the founder secretary of SLAUS and the invitation cards for academic events handwritten by SASG himself during the initial years is clear evidence of his commitment to the association. He became the president of SLAUS in 2008, and a joint meeting was held with the Royal Society of Medicine during his tenure, ably supported by his energetic secretary, Professor Srinath Chandrasekera, which paved the way for collaboration with European urological experts. SASG and Srinath were so influential. Her Excellency Chandrika Kumaratunga, the president of the country at that time, was among the guests at the ceremony. SASG will be remembered and appreciated for the scientific and academic aspect he embellished the surgical sphere with. He was an avid reader who was up to date on knowledge in urology, so much so that his trainer, Dr. L.S. Artigala, used to call him a walking encyclopedia. Any scientific meeting in urology without his presence in the audience was a curry without salt. Unlike academic events today, which are very serious and evidence-based, scientific meetings of SLAUS in its early days was always entertaining as well as educational. We were always waiting for a heated argument between the two senior members, SASG and Professor Neville Pereira. It was fun for us, young members in the audience, but scientific urology was the winner at the end. Both of them were great friends who helped each other uplift the arena of urological surgery to be what it is today in Sri Lanka. SASG was a prolific researcher and writer with publications in numerous national and international journals, and was the editor of the Sri Lanka Journal of Surgery and the Sri Lanka Journal of Urology for many years. Many urological surgeons, surgical trainees, and medical and allied health students have benefited from his incredible knowledge and memory. It was not an easy task to publish a journal regularly when the country had only a handful of urological surgeons. He took immense trouble in sending letters begging to contribute articles to the SLJU. We sent manuscripts to the SLJU not because we wanted a publication, but in order to avoid his endless reminders. SASG was bold enough to introduce several critical changes to the Sri Lanka Journal of Surgery, including a robust peer review system which helped improve its quality remarkably. With the untiring work of its present editor-in-chief, Professor Ajit Malalasekara, who is also a trainee of SASG, the journal has reached unprecedented heights of recognition and popularity. SASG had nearly 50 publications to his credit. Some of them were landmark studies which changed the practice of urology in Sri Lanka and even around the world. He was one of the earliest researchers to highlight and popularize the clinical entity called high-pressure chronic retention of urine. In fact, he reported the first case of high-pressure chronic retention of urine in women. He published several important articles related to bladder cancer in Sri Lanka. These helped to identify certain specific characteristics related to Sri Lankan bladder cancer, as well as drawbacks in the management like lack of intravesical BCG therapy at that time. In the past, when hematuria was not considered a serious symptom of note, he showed the high possibility of having a urinary tract cancer in patients with hematuria older than 35 years of age. He recommended a classification of urological operations that can be used in auditing the workload so that different units and surgeons can be compared in a standard manner. SASG authored the only publication on upper tract urothelial carcinoma from Sri Lanka, which was based on a cohort of patients followed up for over 15 years. Apart from research related to the field of urology, he had several other noteworthy publications. His dedication to whatever professional activity he took up was absolute. When he was a postgraduate examiner at MD Surgery Part 2 examination and said the theory question, he cancelled private practice for 1 week and spent time correcting answer scripts with diligence and attention. I am not aware of any such commitment made by an examiner at postgraduate examinations in this country. He enjoyed teaching and was a highly sought-out trainer among registrars and senior registrars. He was well known for his up-to-date theory knowledge, and his comprehensive classes after ward rounds and in-between theatre cases were very popular among trainees. He was undoubtedly one of the most academically inclined surgeons in Sri Lanka and stood shoulder to shoulder with academics of the international community who respected and admired him. Mr. Mark Speakman, a past president of the British Association of Urological Surgeons, after hearing of the demise of SASG, sent a message saying, I quote, "It is a very great loss to the world and especially Sri Lankan urology. I always felt he was one of the cleverest urologists I had ever met and such a wonderfully modest man," unquote. Mr. Julian Shah, the reputed urological surgeon from the United Kingdom who attended SLAUS academic sessions every year for the past 8 years, would listen only to SASG and no one else on controversial academic matters. That was the level of respect others had for SASG's knowledge and experience in urological surgery. Even up till a few weeks before his untimely death, SASG could be found immersed in books at the Sri Lanka Medical Library. Such was his thirst for knowledge and to pass this knowledge on by teaching it to others. He had dedicated time for reading and reserved at least one day of the week to go to Sri Lanka Medical Library. He was the editor of the Sri Lanka Medical Library in 1997 and 98 and vice president of the management committee of the Sri Lanka Medical Library from 1999 to 2005. He was a kind, caring doctor who respected and gave dignity to his patients, immaterial of who they were. SASG never showed bias whatsoever on gender, ethnicity, or religion issues during his professional life. He ensured that patients of all backgrounds were treated fairly and equally in his unit. On many occasions, he reiterated to his trainees that the way to respect him as a teacher was to uphold and practice his key principles of altruistic patient care and rigorous research. Though he was a tough disciplinarian, he was very kind and sympathetic to all staff members of the unit and the operating room. He spoke to them with a lot of respect and dignity. The junior level staff adored him, and at his retirement day speech, the people he thanked most were the junior level healthcare assistants, showing he was a boss who believed in equity. He looked after his team through thick and thin, through childbirths, weddings, conflicts with other units, deaths, etc. He was even better than a best friend or a family member in this regard. But one of the most important aspects that he was admired for was his honesty, integrity, and values. If he believed that something was right, he would fight tenaciously for it, no matter the personal costs to him. His constant battle to challenge the administration against the practice of keeping prison patients shackled to bed railings and the demand from the government to ensure hospital beds for each and every patient in wards to eliminate flow patients are a few of the many issues he took up. He fought fearlessly with administrators to ensure an uninterrupted supply of medicines and other devices for ward patients. He never tolerated the officials' lackadaisical attitude of hiding behind obsolete regulations and unacceptable traditions. When I was a senior registrar in his unit, there was a militant prisoner who was warded in the unit for a TURP. When SASG came for the ward rounds, the patient was shackled to the bed. SASG refused to see the patient until the shackles were removed, saying according to the Geneva Convention and ethical practices of patient care, no patient should be shackled while medical care is given in a hospital. Though the prison officials were adamant, stating that he was a very high-risk suspect, SASG did not budge. He went on to complain and raise this matter with the Director General of Health Services and the Commissioner of Prisons. He even went so far as to write a letter that was published in the Ceylon Medical Journal, referencing an editorial in the British Medical Journal, written by its well-known editor Richard Smith, explaining why doctors anywhere in the world should not allow shackled patients in their wards. That was his character and force for fairness. He had a few idiosyncrasies that made him unpopular on certain occasions. He was a perfectionist who would never compromise. And in this world of uncertainty and relativity, this was a thorn that irritated him throughout his life. He embarked on writing an exhaustive book on Sri Lankan surgeons of the pre-independence era. He had collected most of the information and documents necessary, which was enough for an ordinary writer to complete the book. Being a perfectionist, he was not content with that, and the masterpiece never became a reality. He cherished his two daughters and called them the right and left eyes of his. When both daughters were abroad for higher studies, he wrote, I quote, "Without my two eyes, I cannot see properly," unquote. SASG never wanted them to be famous professionals. All he wanted for them was to be fearless, honest, and kind people who would help other fellow citizens. After his retirement, he wanted to learn Abhidhamma, the most complex philosophical segment of Theravada Buddhism, and during his life, he was a true practitioner of equanimity and non-greed. SASG never claimed extra duty allowances or obtained the car permit, which he was duly entitled to during his entire career. I must say it is unheard of government officers in Sri Lanka not to claim the retirement car permit. When I inquired about this, SASG said that his blue-colored Maruti 800 19-4899 was still motorable, though he had used it for over 25 years. What greater contentment can we expect from a consultant surgeon of this country? Due to his quality of non-greed and non-attachment, his mind was very calm even during his last days at the cardiology intensive care unit after developing an extensive myocardial infarction. Despite having several tubes and lines connected to his body and lying supine for several days, he never complained of any discomfort or resentment. He was calm and non-reactive, which made me think how non-attached SASG was to his body and life. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. S.A.S. Goonewardena, MBBS Peradeniya, MS Colombo, FRCS England, Diploma in Urology London, urological surgeon, founder editor of Sri Lanka Journal of Urology, and past president of Sri Lanka Association of Urological Surgeons, passed away on the 10th of March 2020 at the age of 62 years. Sri Lanka lost a man who served his motherland and its people with distinction, honesty, and commitment. Groucho Marx said, "History does nothing. It possesses no immense wealth, fights no battles. It is rather man, real living man, who does everything, who possesses and fights." Sirosha Anuruddha Sahadeva Goonewardena did what he was expected to do to the maximum possible. He fought battles on behalf of his colleagues, students, and above all, on behalf of his patients. By doing so, he made history and left an indelible mark in the urosurgical landscape of Sri Lanka. I hope I did justice to a giant in Sri Lankan urology by highlighting some aspects of work and life of Dr. Sirosha Goonewardena and the lessons that we can learn from that. There are many personalities who helped me in this endeavor, and I sincerely thank all of them. I may have missed the contributions and pictures of many others who should have been included in this presentation, for which I apologize to them humbly. Now I will request you to enjoy a song written by Dr. Susantha De Silva, the consultant urological surgeon who succeeded SASG at National Hospital of Sri Lanka. Susantha was Dr. S.A.S. Goonewardena's trainee, whom he loved and respected most.
මනසනසාලූබ මුව කොන්නකින් මදහස පාමින් රෝගී දන මනසනසාලූබ මුව කොන්නකින් මදහස පාමින් අද තුල සැරිසරුවේ අද තුල සැරිසරුවේ යලි කෙදිනද හමුවන්නේ ඔබ කොහෙද ගියේ සැඟවී සඳතරු පිරිරේ සීතල පවනේ තනි යහනේ සැතපී සුවනින්දේ ඔබ කොහෙද ගියේ සැඟවී ගුණ හද පත්ලෙන්නගෙන මුසු කරමින් විදුනැනෙහි ගල්පා ජීවක ගුණ හද පත්ලෙන්නගෙන මුසු කරමින් විදුනැනෙහි ගල්පා ජීවය ගැන දුන්නේ යලි කෙදිනද හමුවන්නේ ඔබ කොහෙද ගියේ සැඟවී සඳතරු පිරිරේ සීතල පවනේ තනි යහනේ සැතපී සුවනින්දේ ඔබ කොහෙද ගියේ සැඟවී
Finally, I thank all of you for your presence tonight and your patient hearing. Thank you.